don't see Mr. Falsey here, but oh, there he is. Right in the corner. So we've got Mr. Falsey, but first we're going to have a briefing on the MLP Chugach Electric RCA filing.
Yeah, so through the chair, I've asked Anna Henderson, our new MLP general manager, to give you our procedural update on where we are.
Thank you.
What about introductions?
Oh, we're going to do introductions first. Anna, go ahead and start.
I'm Anna Henderson, the General Manager for Municipal Light and Power. So the filing...
Hold on, we got to do introductions around there. I'm sorry, I'll start.
Forrest Dunbar.
Crystal Kennedy.
Rose Sturgelinski Ascent.
Christopher Constant.
Meg Zalato.
Cameron Perez-Verdia.
John Weddleton.
Suzanne LeBrance.
Pete Peterson.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So the Commission has issued their first order setting the timeline for a decision on November 19th of 2019. The interveners are Mettons Electric, Golden Valley, and Homer on the utility side. And from the customer side, we have Providence Hospital and the Federal Executive Agency, which represents JREC. So I can't. The Commission has hired a consultant. Initial budget of about $750. They're expecting potentially $500,000 in charges for them to do their work, analyze the filing to assist the Commission in the decision. Each of the interveners will do their own analysis. The Commission is doing their own analysis, and then we'll get reply testimony later on this summer for the hearing sometime this fall.
And I'll jump in that a little color commentary. The other big new development was that RCA did consolidate the acquisition with a VRU docket that was separately ordered, which gives us a new decision deadline from the RCA of November 6th.
No,
19th. November 19th is what we're now expecting. Intervention happens all the time. It's actually a way for anybody who really cares to sort of get a peek at all the confidential materials too, so that's not totally unexpected. And there have been some public comments filed too. Overwhelmingly, the public comments have been, I think, favorable, been a couple disfavorable. And then Golden Valley has said they're acutely concerned about sales outside of the acreage area to them. MEA has said they're making sure that we have all their interests too. But I think we're on track is the bottom line.
And Homer has the same concerns as the other two utilities, and the customers obviously are protecting their interest and wanting to make sure that they're protected in the acquisition. It'll be a robust, lengthy process, and we've already started discovery.
Mr. Dunbar.
No, it's fine. Mr. Falsey answering the question.
So it's unclear. So will we expect a decision in November, or is that when they start their deliberations?
No, it's already started, and the decision is expected November 19th.
Is that
It is a hard deadline, but they do have one option to exercise a 90-day extension.
So 90 would be a problem because we want it by the end of the year, correct?
But they have that right in statute, and if they choose to exercise it, there's nothing we can do.
Yeah. All right, thanks.
Mr. Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And so this is not a surprise. We were anticipating that this was going to happen. We may not have known exactly who the players were, but we were expecting, we knew Providence was going to be in there for sure. They always are.
No, it's not a surprise. We expected the interveners. The consolidation with the VRU docket was a little bit of a surprise, but they have asked Chugach to file testimony here within the next month, explaining what their plans are for managing and operating the VRU reactor. So that's something that the Commission is keenly interested in. It's not a typical utility asset, and there's a lot of value in it.
And for you new members, the VRU is the Beluga River unit.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Mr. Walters? Or Mr. Dunbar? Sorry.
I could only hope. Maybe someday.
Yeah.
The deadline is November 19th. Is it hypothetically possible they could come back earlier than that? And when they set these kind of deadlines, do they usually come back right then, or do they sometimes come back earlier?
No, never earlier. It's always they have other cases that they have to hear, so never early.
Okay, thank you.
So we had a few comments that were made to the public that were supportive and a few that weren't. Can we get a summary of those?
We had to generate that, so we can forward you all of them. The comments are actually, I don't know, it's maybe 35 comments I think I've seen that have been filed. And a lot of them are one paragraph.
Yeah, of course.
I'm a citizen, I care about this, you should do it.
It'd be great to have just an understanding of what the public comment was.
And to clarify, they're available publicly through the commission's website, so would you prefer a link to those comments or a PDF?
Maybe I don't want to waste a bunch of time, a link with some instructions for members who might not otherwise know how to navigate that system for how to navigate it.
Oh, PDF.
However, yeah.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions, thoughts? Hearing none, that's our first agenda item. Thank you very much, Anna.
You're welcome.
Now on to the briefing from Ascent and a discussion of the petroleum and cement terminal. And I think the order of operations will start and hear a bit from Mr. Sturgeluski about their work and what they've been working on, just so everyone can have a sense of how quickly and where they're spending their time.
So I was last in front of you on the 25th of April, and I have to say that the administration did a yeoman's job in terms of getting me under contract. So later that day, I received the notice. So I have jumped in and been inundated with information, both from reading and meeting with users. So since we've last, well, let me go over a little bit of really just what the scope is and a little bit of where I'm at on all the different elements. So I was given 8 tasks, looking at cost growth, looking at options, including design criteria, and then developing engineering issues of practicality if those options were to be pursued, looking at the cost priorities of the users and potential funding options, looking at tariff implications of those options, potential fund source, user fund options, alternate delivery, and then preparation of a project book. And so pretty much on all of those elements, there's been forward progress and progression, and some more than others. I've been over basically every page of information on the website and more, and I have additional information that I'm going to be pouring through, and I appreciate getting all the information from the administration. I've had extensive discussions with users. Many of them are here, and other people, and there clearly are elements where there's not alignment, but there's clearly elements of where there is alignment. And so when I was here last time, I saw a clear path that could be how the port could move forward in a way, and so everything that I've seen so far gives me more encouragement that really is possible. So there's a lot of commonality. There clearly are things where people don't see the same, but both the users want to sit down with the municipality, and I can't totally speak for the users, but I'm just giving you some what I consider to be observations. But there's a desire to have dialogue and talk through and really figure out practical, cost-effective, affordable solutions. And so I see that willingness to dialogue and have conversation, I think is really positive, and I think it could lead to some good things. There's going to be a charrette coming up where there will be some additional discussions, and I think that clearly is very positive. It's going to be hard issues, and one positive thing that I feel like I heard is that there's recognition that tariffs are part of that solution of, the defined solution. Now, is it 100% or is it something less? And, there clearly will have to be dialogue in terms of what that is, but it's, that people are willing to sit down and talk on good solutions. I think that's very positive. And there's also a clear recognition, and something that was evident to me, is there has to be alignment between the user group and the municipality in order for us to really go out and broaden the scope of our plan of finance. So while tariffs may be part of the solution, if we're in a unified position where we're all on the same page when we talk to Juneau, when we talk to DC, it'll be a lot stronger. And so I really, that solution is there. We're not, I don't think it's clearly there. I think the outcome of the charrette will be very helpful, but I've heard some great ideas about major ways that the needs of the port can be addressed through different solutions that are currently in the program. And there are, a lot of these are generated by the user group. So I really think that there will be very positive upcoming discussions in the next few months between the user group and the design team and administration to really help figure out solutions that are cost effective and affordable. So I'm very encouraged where we're at. So that's really kind of just an update of what we've been doing as the Ascent Northern Compass team and kind of where we're at.
Any questions in the short term? I don't see any questions. Oh, Mr.
No, it's
Okay. One thing that wasn't mentioned is the port users have some challenges in their communication because they can't collude with each other on matters that relate to their business, and so they have to communicate in a way that is careful and thoughtful and methodical as well. So it can be a little bit challenging. Mr. Falsey, I'm going to ask you to come in now and tell us new developments and direction.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll say, from my perspective, the last 4 weeks since we have last met have been highly encouraging from where I sit. I feel like we somewhat shot up a flare in the early months of this year saying, here's the path that we have ahead of us, and it is a big challenge. We need someone to come and help us move this rock. A lot of people have showed up, and we are now all engaged. So the port user group, and I don't know if they have a representative who wants to explain how they are structured, is now meeting weekly. So we spent, I think, 2.5 quality hours bringing everybody up to speed onto where we were over at the Covenant House a few weeks ago, and then another 2.5 quality hours going over a presentation I think was on your was being distributed today, where we retraced the particular history of the petroleum cement terminal and how it came to be in the form that it is now, and whether there are any choices that we could undo to make any significant cost savings. I get that there's been a lot of the deep history here is that we inherited a lot of design choices that were made after the two charrettes that happened first in 2013 and then again in 2014. We have taken that all the way to 100% design on a petroleum cement terminal, and it was always our intent to then say, but the rest of this is too expensive, we all got to get in a room and figure out what we're really going to do. I know there's been a lot of change in the companies and the ownership down at the port, a lot of new personalities, and people, frankly, are kind of catching up to where we are. We get that, and I think I second everything I heard from Roe. We all have to be rowing in the same direction if this is going to work. So we are going to rowing in the same direction. We didn't mean to do that, but I like to. So we want to accommodate that. So the original idea was that we were going to say, we got the PCT in the bag. Let's build half of that, and we'll find the rest of the money. We'll build the second half of that. In the meantime, let's stop and figure out what the cargo terminal looks like. The meeting with the port user group that happened just whenever that was, Wednesday, Tuesday, whatever, a million years ago, I guess. Actually, yesterday. We heard loud and clear that we want more comfort that the PCT solution is the right solution. So I think our current plan, and it's happening in real time, is to expand the scope of that charrette, take it from 2 days to 4. Scheduling-wise, we're probably going to have to come in 2 pieces. And the first one will be kind of review the bidding. So how do we get to what we're doing now? And are we still comfortable that it starts with the petroleum cement terminal that we have designed? That will all happen before the assembly has to make any additional decisions. And I'm hopeful that we will all sing Kumbaya or decide that we're going to sing a different tune. But somehow or other, we will all get on the same page and we'll have a sort of consensus recommendation to bring to you guys. And then we'll follow that with the remainder of the cargo conversation, because we know that there were a lot of costs that got rolled into the program in the design choice that somebody else is going to pay for it, and I suspect we can pull a lot of the cargo things off. So in any event, I'm really encouraged. I think the Port User Group has been incredibly helpful. I think but for fielding the Army, we would be sort of high-centered after we spent the remaining $60 million we had. I think all the right players are fully engaged. All the right people that help us move this forward are now fully engaged. And we are bending over backwards, doing our level best to share everything we know, bring everybody into the tent. So that's my penny update.
First, we have Mr. Littleton in the queue.
A couple things. One is I heard you on the radio. It was Steve, and it's actually very good.
I know, it's surprising, right?
Yeah. No, I expected it to be good, and it was. So So two questions. Is the port user group, is that something new that's formed in this moment, or is that?
Yeah, so we met with all the users in late last year to kind of tell them that the petroleum cement terminal had ripened and here were the kind of tariffs we were looking at. And I think that was a moment where people were sort of first getting, oh, we should re-engage. When we finally took it to the Port Commission, we got a lot of engagement. And then, to their credit, I think Dave Karp at Tote and Val Dreyfus at Matson have really sort of taken the lead. So we got to get everybody together. So I don't know how long you guys have been at it, maybe 3 weeks, 2 weeks. But there's a real rhythm now. So there's a weekly meeting. I don't know if you guys have some kind of bylaws or protocol or something. You guys could ask them. But it feels different. It feels materially different to me over the last 2-3 weeks.
So another question. So this was a thing that I think has come out with emails from people. They say, okay, so you have half the money you need to build the PCT. What if you only build half of it? That's the dumbest thing ever. So, but you're totally rethinking this.
I think
is that right?
2 responses. First, we still think right now is not the dumbest thing ever, and the reason is the $60 million we have can only be used to advance the port. And if we build half the PCT, we are 1 year closer to replacing that facility and leaving it out in the water in a half-finished condition. And maybe get a tiny bit of additional corrosion, but you otherwise don't have problems. You can stay half built out in the water for a while. And of course, we have a real seismic event, and it's a real emergency, then we're 1 year closer instead of 2 years away from replacing that facility. We are understanding, though, that we need to have general consensus on that. So we understand that if everyone says, whoa, 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 that is the dumbest thing ever because we have an alternative idea, or we're just not comfortable with that idea, it's going to be a tall order to ask you guys to let us put $60 million into half of the petroleum cement terminal. And so that's the first pivot that we made. We said, okay, we hear you guys. We're all working in good faith here. Let's expand the scope of the shred that we were intending to do, not just cargo, which we always thought was going to be take a fresh look, but take a fresh look at it.
All right, great.
I would add, Ms. Walsh said something to me today that I think would be wise to have her reiterate, if you don't mind, Karen. Just this idea of, he hinted at it, seismic events and whatnot with the...
Right. Well, we believe the bids are out. The bid is open, is out for bidding now. And right now scheduled to open June 7th. We have it structured to get the maximum pieces and parts that we have money for. And we're pretty confident that we'll get the piling, pile caps, and the deck of the trestle. So it will be, a standing unit. And if we have an event that we feel pretty strongly can be used in an emergency situation as a way to transfer goods across, to transfer goods. So it's not that it would be commercially usable, but if we needed it, we could make it work in an emergency. So it does have a resiliency component to it that we think is really important to keep in people's minds, especially, the state of our current and oldest facilities.
Thank you. So, can you lay out the time, because Mr. Palsy, the timeline changed this week with the ITB. So we're looking at this meeting, we have an assembly meeting, and then we have May 28th as the ITB. So now what's happening?
We had some requests from some folks who are looking seriously at the invitation to bid to have more time to respond. And I think we extended by 2 weeks. So the new deadline is June 7th, as Sharon just said. The charrette, we're in real time moving. I'm going to look at Jeff Poole and phone a friend. And so we would receive the bids June 6th, I think we just said, and then we would have an internal process to look at them, sort them, rank them, and then come to a consensus recommendation. But that's a new assembly action, so that doesn't happen until we introduce something, have a public hearing on it, and go.
So, okay. You had a question?
I didn't
Ms.
hear
Alto?
the dates that he said in the back. I couldn't hear.
It was June 7th is the date. It moved from May 28th to June 7th. And thank you, because as a person who writes proposals, knowing that a proposal is due the day after Memorial Day is kind of evil. So thank you for us being a little less evil in the world. June 7th, and then June 13th and 14th is the charrette.
June 15th was what?
June 13th and 14th is the charrette, and maybe it'll be 2 chunks, 4 days, I heard, because there are multiple considerations. So a question that was raised to me was, we don't get in any encumbered situation with a bidder. If we open their bid, we determine that this is the best bid, and if the assembly hasn't taken action, right? So there's really not a contract until the assembly takes action,
Correct. That's absolutely correct.
Okay, because I've heard something about if you have a contract and you make changes, then we may be substantially on the hook for costs associated with those changes, but not if we haven't awarded yet.
Right.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So, any other questions on that? Ms. LaFrance?
Thank you, Mr. Constant. So just so I'm clear, understanding that this is a new assembly action, when would it come before us then? We're talking about approving the contract?
Right, and my guess, if I might, on this one is they get the bids, they score the bids, they decide which one is the most competitive, and then they introduce a resolution, but it has to have a public hearing because it's pretty big. We have a public hearing, so it's a month.
Okay.
Yeah, 3 weeks.
So through the chair, I think we're looking at sometime in July. And I'll also say, it looks like folks are thumbing through the presentation. And we've never really engaged with the assembly on this level of detail with the presentation we have now, but we're completely willing to do it. We did it internally once. We did it once for the port users. We did a very light version for Row. We could do it for you folks as well. The short version of this story is, you've heard me say on radio and other places that we think there were sort of 4 meaningful choices we made that we could potentially have gone the other way and maybe shave a little bit of money off. Here you'll see 10. And the 10 is because we think there's some real losers in there. One of them is like, you could just pretend there's going to be less ice on the piles, but I'm not sure why you would ever do that. Another is we could reuse this hose tower. It's very marginal, but we might break the hose tower we have. Third is that we have a shack on there now we could potentially use, but it's way too small for future use. All of which is to say, we think there were sort of 4 things we actually chose to do, and even if you back all of the 10 out, and you can sort of choose your own adventure, our bottom line is we're kind of at a wash, which is partly why we're comfortable with the petroleum cement terminal. We feel like we have shaved off all of the elected costs on the PCT, or have allowed for sea level rise kind of changes that we think are going to pay for themselves because they're hopefully going to get a federal grant, which we should know about by the end of the month. If it's good for the gander. If anyone wants that presentation, we are happy to do it a 3rd or 4th time. And maybe that's what we would end up doing when we meet you again next month.
Ms. Zalatel and then Mr. Dunbar.
Thank you. So the question I get from my constituents is if we move forward with any portion of the petroleum and cement terminal and then we change our ideas on the larger port redesign, what are the implications? Or are we able to be flexible enough in the larger port redesign to incorporate whatever we do, even if it's only half of it?
So through chair, yes, so building half of the petroleum cement terminal locks you in to building the petroleum cement terminal in more or less configuration at that spot. So part of our goal through that charrette would be to reinterrogate that choice and make sure we all agree that that's the right choice. We have some confidence that when everybody gets to chew into that we will emerge thinking that is the right choice. And that's because of some seismic stuff that we've done. Jeff needs the real expert, he can speak more to that. But you're right, if you think that we may radically change course and say actually we don't want a PCT at all, or we want to move it somewhere totally different, then we should not build half of it where you're currently planning to do.
Ms. Sturgelinski, is that something you're involved in, that conversation? Because you're going to be giving us this other advice, or this more overall advice and guidance, not till like September or October, I forget the date. And we're talking about something potentially in July. So kind of just reconciling the timeline.
So I've had discussions with users, and I have heard alternate solutions to the PCT. And that sort of discussion is exactly what will happen between the administration and the charrette. And there will be, 2 sides of that, or I'm sure there's multiple perspectives within the user group community, but there'll be there's a process in place where that will be able to be determined and talked about to help make the determination of what is the best approach in terms of the municipality. And the outcome, if, as stated earlier by the city manager, if there's alignment, then there could be a joint recommendation that would really add weight to your decision in terms of how to move forward. If there's not alignment, then it could get a little bit more interesting, and we'll just have to figure out how that comes. But the great news from my perspective is that dialogue is going to happen prior to award, and it'll be able to be talked through, and I think that's very healthy and in the interest of the municipality.
Thank you.
And I would just add, the award has to come to us before it becomes real. And so there is an opportunity for that intervention should the need arise. Thank you, Mr.
Yeah, it was. And I apologize, I missed the last meeting on this, so I apologize if this was already addressed. The question I keep coming back to, and I want us to always keep sort of forward in mind, is imagine the rest of the port project wasn't happening, right? Would we be doing this? Would we be going forward with PCT? And would we be doing it in this way? I think it's similar to the question that Zalatel asked, but kind of inverted. If the rest of the project doesn't happen, would we be going forward with PCT in this fashion?
So, through the chair, I think most of the answer to that we think is yes, and we're hoping that we can convince everybody else that that is a well-considered answer, but we'll really interrogate it. But it's a little bit of a tricky question to answer in the abstract, because what does it mean that the rest of the project would go forward? If we only have enough money to build one thing, and we're starting with PCT, and the rest of it's going to just sit there for a while, then I think the answer is yes. We're comfortable going forward with PCT. We've got to make physically more room so we can ever get to the rest of the stuff. I guess I'm not entirely sure how to fully tease out the hypothetical, but
for example, we received a proposal, and I know that Ro will probably look into it. We had someone come to the assembly and say, don't do any of that stuff that you're talking about. Go use the lands that were built to the, I guess, northeast, and use a fundamentally different structure or project. Yeah. If we were to actually do that, and I don't know if it's engineered, feasible, but if we would actually do that, how would we then, assuming that, how would we approach the PCT project?
There's a lot to unpack there. Part of what's making it difficult to answer is that we are in some ways repeating the past years. So the 2013 charrette was right after the federal project failed, and we thought, what the heck do we do now? And the answer that came out of that was, well, hang a cargo dock off the front of a stabilized northern extension. And then we pretty quickly realized that it's not going to work. And so we had a new charrette where we said, what's the new answer? And that's where we ended up here. So rather than only answering is that I feel like that is trodden ground, and we've already sort of moved past that and take a fresh look at it, I guess, in some way. I think if you begin with the assumption there are three business lines, petroleum, cement, and cargo, we want to stay in all three of those business lines, and you physically can't get to cargo until you move petroleum cement out of the way somehow, some way, we feel really good that the petroleum cement terminal is the answer to the first part of the problem.
Okay. But it also means that if for some reason we didn't have to replace or change the cargo, we wouldn't be moving PCT. Right?
I think we might be moving PCT anyway.
Okay, that's
rather than me just wildly speculating.
Moving and reconstructing and repairing, even absent the cargo.
Yeah, Jeff Bull with the Seastrip. To answer your question, all of the cement and fuels infrastructure is on the south end of the port. So the P&D proposal talked about moving the cargo facilities up in the northern extension, and that's been talked about. So to answer that specific question, we definitely would build the PCT in its current location because that's where all the infrastructure is for fuels and cement.
When you say its current location, you mean
all the piping, those fuel tanks,
proposed
silos.
location.
Right, the proposed.
Okay.
Yes, it's currently planned.
It moves a little south, and the users, I think, say that's a little better because it's actually shorter distance to pump the cement, it's a little shorter distance to pump.
But is that worth $110 million?
And with respect to if there was let's say, a gap in the rest of the program, would we still want to build a PCT in its current location and configuration? The answer is yes, because it's farther south than all the current port facilities. So it's not creating any kind of impediment to navigation, with the one exception of it doesn't make it tight to come out of POL2 right now, which is just kind of the inevitability of the phasing process. But it doesn't impact the cargo docks in any way or anything else. So that's exactly why it's sited all the way down to a new location south where all the cement and the fuels infrastructure is adjacent to it. So
questions? I would just add to that any consideration of those questions could be impacted by the SHRED and its conversation, which would be before the implementation of any contract, which would provide for the opportunity for the administration to consume any new information and make a response or an alternative if one comes forward. Go ahead, Mr. Tresverd.
So, Mr. Rowe, help me to understand the relationship and how to coordinate these two pieces, right? The discussion about the PCT and the work on that, and then what happens next, and all of those pieces with the work that you're doing to try to develop a thoughtful plan, if you will, about how to move forward and how to communicate that. I'm confused how, if we're not sure how it's going to move forward or how you're able to do your work. So I'm wondering about the alignment between these two pieces.
Well, if you look at the size of my brain versus the size of all the brains that are here, theirs are a lot larger. And so the best thing that I could do is make sure that the smart people that are on the decision-making or that get impacted by the decisions, if they are having the dialogue and having the discussions that I've had with them, the outcome of that is going to be, I'm going to be able to do my job watching them do their job. And so I am fully, the exact discussions that are here, I mean, there's going to be those discussions, there will be twists and turns. There's going to be information that is in people's heads that are here that they're going to share with these people that are here, and you're going to get a melding of that will be, I think, a good solution that will allow you as an assembly member to make a good effort. So my role just being here and facilitating some of these discussions and making sure that people are talking is, I think, is very beneficial in coming up with an overall solution that you can act on. And after, I know what's in some of the people's heads that are in the audience because I've had dialogue with them. And once there's good free-flowing discussions with the administration, there'll be even, you will figure out ways to save hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. And I'm absolutely positive of that. That'll be the outcome. So it really is, to me, it's a good path that you're on right now. It's an interesting time in that, and I think the next 3 weeks to a month will be interesting, but the outcome, I think, will be good.
Just a quick follow-up, and that is that and I don't know if this is part of what you're reconciling within the work that you're doing, but part of what I'm hearing is not only sort of a past trauma of past mistakes or past confusion or whatever it is, and trying to not repeat the mistakes of the past, but also this continuously questioning whether the assumptions that are being made that underlie sort of why we're doing it and where we're going, and this effort of constantly questioning that, as opposed to having enough of a foundation to be able to say, okay, we know enough, we're feeling really solid in the information that we have, and this is the right course, now let's go. And so I don't know how we reconcile that, how we reconcile the questions Mr. Dunbar is asking about some of these underlying assumptions. If we don't need this, then why do we need this? And are we sure we need that? And are those assumptions correct? And I don't know how we get to the point where we feel confident that we've vetted those sufficiently that we can move forward. And that may be part of the work that you're doing as well.
Right. And I would just put a layer of caution that we aren't expecting Ascent to develop the plan for how this is going to happen.
Right.
That would be a mega lift for a corporation who've spent millions of dollars to come up with an actual plan. What I understand their role is to help us understand all of this information in context so that when it's time for us to make a decision, we're making a fully informed decision. And so they're really helping to unify this conversation. In the end, I think, to answer your question, the way we know is when we have alignment between the users and administration's proposal, and we can then conceive of a path to success, right? That's when we'll know. It's kind of intangible at this point. But I don't want you to think that we're asking you to develop the plan. We're asking you to codify the plan that is in the language we understand, right? Because when we are barraged with 100 pages of engineering documents, it makes no sense to us.
And just one quick point. My point was there are underlying assumptions built in for all of those things that I think are that would be helpful for us to unearth a bit.
And that's why, Mr. Falsey, going through these documents that are substantial in content with us in a structured way is very important, so that we do understand the assumptions that underpin these decisions and how they change through a charrette or other events.
And that, what you said there is absolutely true. And so and I have heard in this meeting today some assumptions that did inform the original sequencing that may or may not be totally valid. And those are, and that's exactly what I envision happening in that charrette, is those get put out on the table, and what if we do this, or why can't we do that? And what if we did this scenario? And I think I see a change in the dynamic of the discussions, and getting to the point of, does it make sense to move forward with the PCT? And if the joint answer is yes, then that is a good level of comfort to the assembly. And if the answer is no, then they'll have to, there'll have to be some discussion about where that goes. But the process is in place to me is just excellent. And I really, I think both the users and the administration should be commended for their willingness to dialogue and come out with the best solution.
Mr. Wilson.
Thanks. It may get trickier than that. I suspect it will. Say a go-no-go on the PCT. That might be if you have one design. But I think one place where we'd have a kind of split in interest and no one's wrong is, if you have a business there, your customers at the end of the chain don't really care that we built it to stand up to a 9.0 earthquake. They just want to know, I can't charge more than this, which means the company at the dock can't charge more than that, but they're going to have to pay more if we really harden this for a harder earthquake. So you may have, build that PCT, but to sustain, but for a 7 earthquake, not a 9, or whatever the cutoff would be. And for us, well, it's a little different. We don't want to lose our businesses, but we do have a responsibility for the broader city for the long time. We may have more inclination to build it really solid, or build parts of it, I think is the plan, and that's, I think, where they'll say, we do want that dock, and we want 2 berths, but we want them built at this level, not that. And that, I think, is ultimately going to be the tough decision for us, to impose on the businesses, sorry about that, but we're going to build something that's resilient. This is hypothetical, but that's an important question. And we need expertise on that. Where do you draw that line?
Right, and so those are very interesting levels of where we're going to be coming with this, and I just assure you, we aren't expecting you to draft a plan of how we're going to build what we're going to build. We just need help getting to the decision. And we do want a strategic plan, but it should just codify this conversation. So, okay, other comments from the members of Ms. Elton?
Thank you. So the $60 million that we currently have, I guess I'd like a little information. Is that like time bound in any way? Where it's good, it's ours. If we want to delay like another year for some reason, I understand the cost of goods goes up and that kind of stuff, but.
So who's Jared? The money we have, we started with $128 million of leftover state grants. I think technically all of them were supposed to be used by a certain amount of time. They kind of expire, and we asked to keep them every year. In practice, I think it would be pretty extraordinary for the governor to say, all right, take them back, you didn't use them. But I think theoretically that could happen. But we've been extending them for a very long time. To the $128 million, we've added 30. 20 was another state grant, so it's in the same category, and 10 or 11 was port cash, so there's no strings to that at all. So of the $60 million we have left, I think the technical answer is yes, some portion of it does expire, but in practice it's never really expired. It would be pretty wild for it to take those.
Okay. So a possible threat, but a very small possible threat. So other questions, comments from the members? Just also for the record, the mayor's been here for most of the meeting, so just put that on there. And So now I guess we'll open up the audience. And is there anyone who wants to speak on behalf of the combined users? Let us know what happened at your meeting yesterday from your perspective. And if there's no one willing to do that, because I understand procedurally you have rules and have to go through process to get to the point where you can do that, if you'd like to speak on behalf of your own organization, that's fine. Please, say your name for the record.
First of all, I'm just speaking for myself, Albert Swank. Excuse me, I'm sorry. The hearing in this room is terrible. I only probably heard about 60%, especially the woman on the end. I apologize, but it was very difficult. So I've only picked up about 60% of the conversation. I'm a consultant, I'm an engineer, I've built ports all over the world, on and on. I was born and raised here, etc. Over 40 years in my profession. I'm just picking up, am I familiar with the port? Yes. Starting at the age of about 14. And that is my immediate relatives were head of the union. I actually, before I became an engineer, worked on the dock as a casual laborer. So it's been from that point to forward, etc. Enough said. I'm born and raised here. Okay, and I will say I'm a registered civil engineer, structural engineer, mechanical engineer with electrical pending as well. Now, the key words that I have heard here, I am called around the world to come in, either design a project that other people have had difficulties with, or to clean up projects. And I've been through a lot of them. The last large local project that I was involved in was the terminal expansion for the state of Alaska airport, which was very difficult, had many problems, no different than our port. Now, the comments that I heard, comments in this room, as well as on any project, especially governmental projects, are very typical and common. Points brought up, you folks on the assembly will sign on the bottom line, the dollar line, and the city will be held liable for it, period. The rest of it, the users group, the city of Anchorage, etc., are, the way I would phrase it is, those are the two principal groups that have to coordinate and develop what is truly needed. There has been, as has been currently stated, work there. But I am not hearing, and I'm not aware, that there has been a continual such depth. The comment about, I heard also, I'm just pointing out a few major bullets I will state. That could go either
30 seconds.
Oh, 30 seconds, okay. The contract, the existing cement port, etc., releasing a contract, bidding on it and whatnot, unless all the contract documents are adopted and prepared right, may or may not have financial consequences. Doing the CP, doing the cement facility, cement petroleum facility, prior than an entire plan for all of what's going to happen with financing as well, is a total mistake. That is no different in many terms than what was done historically on this port. And I think that's about all I can say at 30 seconds.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other individuals interested in speaking on the record? Any of the port users, please.
My name is Bert Mattingly, and I represent Anchorage Fueling Service Company. We do all the fueling out at the airport. And I'm going to maybe state an obvious point on the project, because in the past the port has said that they've engaged all the user groups. And yesterday I finally saw a name from our organization that was engaged, and that was in 2014. At that time it was primarily funded by the government. So when it's funded by the government, the users say, sure, right? I mean, I'm not an engineer, but what's changed is we're doing it all self-funding now. So it's our nickel on the line. So it's a lot more impactful. The airline's position basically is that this is an asset that benefits Anchorage and not the airlines, and that it should be funded via federal and state level.
Yeah, thank you, we've heard that. I guess we'll continue to hear it.
Yep.
And the project is gonna go where it's gonna go, so, thank you. Others, yeah, please, say your name for the record.
Lev Yavolsky, Petrostar. So, just want to, I can't speak on behalf of the user group because we're still getting organized, as Bill mentioned, just in the second week. Do want to express our gratitude really to the administration, Bill, the folks from the port about how transparent up front they've been in terms of sharing the information. And I can say on behalf of our organization that we view this as an opportunity to work together to develop the right port facility that is, as Rose said, is affordable and can be sustained by the city. And then I think there's an appetite, at least within my organization and our parent company, SRC, to assist in the funding and things like that. So, again, thank you to you guys for getting us together and getting us some momentum behind it.
Anyone else? All right. So, now's your chance. Get the gavel down. Okay.
No comment except I was present at the meeting.
All right. So, any members like to speak up? I think we're getting close to the end of our agenda. We will be having a special meeting on the 6th. What time is it, Mr. France?
I'm sorry, I'll have to check.
It's on the calendar.
I can't get to my email still.
Yeah, it'll be on the 6th, not relating to the port. It will be a conversation regarding the Merrill Field project that's happening. That's on our agenda. And so, from 1 to 2. Right, especially on the 6th, 1 to 2. And so that'll be the next time we convene. And a couple of us will be on a tour tomorrow of the port. We're going to go on a boat ride and investigate for ourselves the look. And I would offer to the members that if that's something you would be interested in, I do recommend you speak with Jim Jagger or Sharon Walsh at the port to arrange such a trip tomorrow. The boat is full, and we can't take any more members. So, Mr. Dyson.
Yeah, Ro or perhaps Bill. Who's the repository of all these studies and things that were mentioned in this?
The Port of Alaska, and in particular, where it's all being managed by CH2M Jacobs, and we just, I think, sent Ro 75 studies. So he's got them out too, but we've got anything you want, we'll happily share.
Good. All right, I'd like to see it for a moment before we leave. Thank you.
And one thing is, are those documents available online on a website somewhere?
A lot of them, a number of documents are. I don't think anything close to what we've been burying Ro in is available online. But we can, and some of them, I don't know.
I understand.
We try to put a lot of them online. Some of them shouldn't be online.
Shouldn't be,
some
right.
of them are
Strategic.
independent cost estimated.
Yeah.
There's secret sauce about what we think things are going to cost. But we can work to put more stuff online as people want it. We know there's acute interest in the reports out from the 2013 and 2014 charrettes. So I think we were getting that from you because we don't have them already, and I know that Ro got them this morning. So that's the kind of thing.
Okay, no, so if it's to be hosted on the port website, great, or we could get it up on the committee website, but it should be somewhere for the public to be able to scour through those documents and understand what we're talking about when we talk about these things, other than documents that have some secure or confidential material that needs to be kept. So
the only practical limitation is there are
75.
many documents. So we'll try to high grade some stuff that might be.
Thank you, Mr. Dyson.
Yeah, thank you. So one of the things I've learned in this relatively long and active life is to not recycle my mistakes. Try to do new ones.
Yeah.
And I suspect there's a long list of things that, looking back, were mistakes in this whole thing over the last 25 or 30 years. Probably some lessons we learned. But I'd like to say to everyone, particularly those who have the experience and stuff, any counsel you have about prospective minefields out there and things that can go in the ditch, we really need to know. And none of us are experts. Most of us are experience pales by compared to yours, but we need the best of the information you can get to us, and I, for one, am sure be glad to get it. So please help us avoid mistakes that we can see are dangers out there in the future. So I spent several long nights in a small boat off the port trying to keep the dredgers and stuff from tangling up with all the telephone power lines and pipelines down out there. And, like most of you know, navigating Cook Inlet, its tidal velocities, and weather and topography is challenging. But anyways, please help us out.
Right, and with that, if there's no other comments, I'll just say thank you to the administration for helping us and our experts become up to speed. And one note for the assembly, there was a non-disclosure agreement signed between the contractor and the muni on certain items. And so the work is deepening, and we're going to have a really good basis of information that can help us make the right decision. So thank you, everybody, for being here, continuing to participate. The next meeting is our next regularly scheduled meeting, and other than the Merrill Field meeting on the 6th. So thank you, and we're adjourned.